is a podcast hosted by Shayna and Jamara, critiquing pop culture, fandom, literature, and all sorts of media. Our blackness is the lens through which we see the world, and our gender is how we experience it. This is the manifesto of two sisters who are unapologetically Black women interested in discussing, critiquing, celebrating culture in a world that prefers us to remain silent. Thank you so much for subscribing and listening to The Geek and the Scribe. My name is Jamara. Hi, I am your scribe. I am a writer, a poet, a thinker, and a reader. And this is my co-host, Shayna.
Hey, I'm Shayna, and I am the geek. I think.
Go ahead, Shayna. We'll give you a second. Hi, Shayna.
Hi. Hi, Jamara.
So today we want to welcome everyone to our special. Dun dun dun! For our live viewers, they can see my screen right now. The May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you.
We are doing a special show today on. Hold on. We are doing a special show on May the 4th, which is also the official, yet unofficial, yet official, yet unofficial Star Wars holiday.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So in today's show, we are, okay, so when it comes to Star Wars, there's so much we could do. Like we could do a deep dive and just talk for hours, literally hours, days, months. But we are, so I'm just going to say this show requires some previous knowledge of Star Wars. If you are a fandom like Shayna, our resident geek, or you're just like me, just like me, just a total fan and just totally into it, I think we'll have a little bit of something for everyone. So specifically tonight, we will be covering episode 4, A New Hope, episode 5, or referencing episode 4, A New Hope, episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and then episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And then, of course, as always, we'll be having questions around race, gender, and identity and fandom as we go through our conversation. So, Shayna, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here, and I'm ready.
Okay. So it's really interesting because the first Star Wars came out in what, 1977?
Yes.
And so in the most recent version, most recent film came out, was it Christmas?
No, right before. It was, but in time for the Christmas weekend, I think. It was like the week before, I think, though. Hold on.
Right. So Star Wars is this incredible film series that has spanned generations. And so we were talking about, how do you explain Star Wars to an 8-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old who just hasn't even been around 10 years to even understand like how these trilogies and these prequels have come about and expanded and evolved over time. So you came up with an example of how to explain it.
Yes, I did. And it's funny because I had to explain it to somebody who was about 10 years old. And this is what I got. And man, after this, she was so excited that she wanted to watch them as soon as we got home. So this is what I said to a 10-year-old about Star Wars. It is a fairy tale in space. Think about it. An evil man kidnaps a princess. She sends a message of help, which is found by a reluctant hero who, after getting proper motivations, well, in the form of goodbye, Uncle Owen and Aunt Varuk, meets up with wise old men. So together, them in comic relief meet dashing rogue and giant sidekick. They save the princess, lose the mentor, big cry, storm the space station, blow it up, can we say huge design flaw, and evil's punished, the day is saved, the end. Well, not really, as there's about 6 more movies after that, but it is a well-contained story.
I mean, that's pretty good though. I like the big cry. That's cute.
I mean, that's when Obi-Wan bites it. Come on, like everybody's like, no.
I know. I watched them this weekend, and I just felt like there were so many moments where I felt like overly emotional, and I had to like pull back and be like, okay, man up, man up, man up, man up. So Shayna, why don't you kick us off? You want to talk to us today about the hero's journey and how it relates to Star Wars. So why don't you just hop right in?
Well, Star Wars is a hero, especially the first three. They are a hero's journey. Heck, the first one all by itself, you could say, culminates well in the hero's journey. It has a clear beginning, middle, and end. You have your hero character called in need. He didn't set out to be a hero, but he did what was necessary of him. And when that happened, big doors opened up and opportunities for him to be the big hero presented to him. And he rises to the occasion. And that's usually what the hero's journey entails. But Star Wars goes so much deeper into it with the original trilogy, because not only do you get to meet a hero who rises to the occasion, but you also get to see him struggle with the choices that he has to make along the way. And you show that he's not always going to have victories. Empire Strikes Back shows you very clearly that he's going to have failings. What would have happened had he not rushed to Cloud City and finished his training? We won't know, because he made a clear decision in his hero's journey. And then culminating all the way to Return of the Jedi, he's finally a realized Jedi. He's able to save his friend, correct some of the mistakes that he made in Empire Strikes Back, and redeem the titular father of his character, the titular character of his father, who, when you get to see the prequel series, was the Messiah chosen one. And that's a whole different kind of story arc, and we'll get into that one later. But right now we're just sticking with Luke's hero journey. And man, is it a good journey. And it gives you great pathos all the way through. But part of the reason why we're so excited to see him why we were so excited to see him at the end of Force Awakens, it was so beautiful. Okay. Oh, sorry for all who just got a big old view of my forehead.
That's okay. We like foreheads. It's fine.
But yeah, like the heroes. I really got stuff saying, but the hero's journey is such a story that we tell over and over. It's a story we seem to be fascinated with, and to me, in a way, the just plain hero's journey is so much better than stories like the Messiah, the Chosen One, and those stories have their place, and there are plenty of really good ones, like my favorite one being like Harry Potter, but it says something about anybody can be that hero. You can be that hero. I can be that hero. And it makes it really easy to put yourself in the story. I think one thing we can always take from Star Wars is that, and man, the way media and other shows have used it over the years is, yeah, it's real easy to put yourself in that hero's role. And how many shows and movies and heck, there's a whole Star Wars spoof movie. Hats off to Spaceballs. Yeah, I know. But like, in how many TV shows have done a Star Wars episode? Family Guy, Robot Chicken, The Community even did one. Like, everybody's done it because that 70s show, like, everybody's done a Star Wars story because it's probably one of our more recognizable hero stories that was done really well.
So as you were saying that, I was thinking about Mark Hamill as an actor, and it was really interesting for me to watch A New Hope, and then watch Empire Strikes Back, and then watch Return of the Jedi, and actually see him grow as an actor.
He's such an awesome.
Feeling very, definitely he did a great job in A New Hope, but definitely felt very young, felt very youthful, felt almost underdeveloped, just in terms of a character. Like, he was there, but like it's really in the next movies where you start to see him kind of like as this coming of age, like this man, what I mean?
you see him grow.
Yeah, no, it's totally so much growth there. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Oh no, you're not cutting me off. I appreciate the input. But it does beg the question, and I think about this. I was thinking about this as I was saying, like after I told you I wanted to talk a little bit about the hero's journey, and I was like, man, why is it that we love this story? And yeah, it's fun to put yourself in it, but why do we love the hero story so much? It's existed since the days of mythology type thing. So why does that mean so much to us? Is it that we all want to believe that we have the courage and capacity to be heroes, or just believe that heroes are amongst us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question that we should definitely throw out to our listeners. What do you think about the hero's journey, and what are your what's your sentiment, or what's your feeling towards it? I mean, my sense is that, and I think, I don't know if you were going to talk about this in terms of Star Wars being a story about lineage and about family. I think some of it though is something about that placement of family, and I mean we see like we see this kind of these families that aren't nuclear families,
Yeah,
and kind of this idea that even if you were adopted, even if anything happened, you still have a chance.
it's true, because I mean, Luke is raised by his aunt and uncle, because obviously he, and what we learn later is his sister Leia, they both are kind of in adopted families. Luke, one that is more traditionally related to him, even if it is just by marriage, and Leia was actually fully adopted and had no idea about her birth parents.
Right.
So like here you got and then you have the maid family of someone, say like Han Solo and Chewbacca, who are both kind of separated from their past entirely and have developed this very close bond with each other of support.
Oh my goodness. So I mean, I wanted to talk about, I kind of feel like maybe we should talk about friendship now.
Friendship is, I feel friendship, and like I know I eventually want to talk about like the Live, but I feel like it's almost more appropriate to talk about the other movies. I was gonna talk about here like a little bit though, because the only real love relationship is Han and Leia, so I have to throw them out there. But right. Yeah, but
so for me, one of the themes that came up as I was watching the movies this recently is really about friendships, and I was really touched and moved by the friendship between R2-D2 and CP3O. Not just because I was a kid and had a CP3O sweatshirt and a R2-D2 backpack, or I had all that stuff, that the 80s stuff that was produced as a result of Star Wars.
A lot of strange things in the 80s.
But man, I was really just thinking about these two entities who were thrown together by these circumstances and go on these journeys together, and one being really fussy and high maintenance, and the other one being just like, you know what I mean, like. But also like holding these secret messages and these holograms, and so they both have these critical roles in the plot and in the story. And so there was that friendship, and then when they meet Chewie later on, and like he cares for them, and they're just all these non-traditional, I guess, friendships that really pop up that made me feel very close to the storyline.
No, I get it. Like to me, like C3PO and R2-D2 to me were always kind of like the odd couple, or like Laurel and Hardy, or something, like one of those like classic comedy teams. They play so well off each other, and they are legitimately funny, even though you have no idea what R2 is saying. But it's almost like just based off the reactions of C3PO, and oh my God, hats off to the man who plays C3PO for being able to translate emotion through a character who's not supposed to have any.
Right, exactly.
Where clearly R2 seems to have emotion and a little more free thinking, but at the end of the day, where R2 is reckless, 3PO is cautious, and they keep each other safe and keep each other moving through this chaos that's going on around them. And my God, they're just funny. Like, they're just funny to listen to and watch, and the comedy, and even some of the physical comedy between the two of them. It's like, oh, you get on my nerves. But deep down, you see these droids have affection for each other. And that's the other thing. The droids, they're not the only droids that they show in the Star Wars canon. The droids seem to really have feelings, and that's interesting that this long, long time ago society has these, what are essentially servants, but you're giving them personality. And it's an interesting thing, and I'm like wondering, why would they give them emotions and personality? But maybe because it makes people feel more comfortable. Maybe we don't like the idea of this mindless thing that's with us all the time that we have to order around. It can think for itself to a certain extent, so it makes it more reliable. That could be the reason why the droids are the way they are, but man, I don't care. I just love to watch them.
Yeah, me too. I mean, whenever they're on screen together, and they just have like this banter, or even if they're just like walking. There was this really cool video I saw on YouTube, which is essentially R2D2 and CP3O. Music, Bill Withers, just the two of us. So at the beginning it's them talking, and then it's just like the, just the two of us, and it just made me feel like.
Did you have have the warm tinglies on the inside?
I did. I was just like, this is everything I want a best friend to be. Now I will confess, it's not in my top 3 list of favorite best friendships. Because I don't think there's, I am hard pressed to believe there's any friendship that's more dedicated and loyal than Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah.
I just think he is the ultimate friend, because I mean,
like, I can't carry it for you, Mr. Frozen, but I can carry you.
Right.
Oh,
exactly.
Man.
Sam,
right here.
If you want a friend, like, Sam is the friend I want to have, because he got him through all those movies. He got him through, like, he carried him physically when he couldn't carry him, and he risked going crazy, on his own. Anyway, this is not a show about Lord of the Rings. But
we'll do that one day, though, because this is legitimately one of our favorite movies.
Right. Right, exactly. Oh, trust me, Lord of the Rings is coming. So but R2D2 and CP3O is definitely in my top 5 favorite friendships on screen, especially in sci-fi. There was a moment in one of the films where, oh gosh, I'm just trying to remember. It was the first one with Billy D.
Empire.
Is it Empire? Yeah. Is it where is this CP3O gets chopped up into pieces, and and Chewie is essentially why? Hey guys, let's go get him. You know what I mean? And you see him carrying him in his pieces, and even though they're not longtime friends at that point, it was really moving to see him care. And I mean, Chewie is just an emotional. He's like a walking heartbeat. You know what I mean? He just loves and gets sad, and it's all the time. But
I always felt like Chewie was the caretaker of the group. He made sure everybody was okay, and Chewie's the one who fixed everything on the Millennium Falcon most of the time. Chewie put C-3PO back together in Empire. And even further, the more I learn about Chewie, I learned new facts about him recently, and I was like, oh snap! One, Wookiees live super long lives, so
because Chewie was supposed to be 200 at the beginning.
He is.
Already 200.
Yeah,
That's all.
he is. But apparently for Wookiees, that's like in your 20s apparently. So that's cool. They have long lifespans like that. But like the story, like, oh man, the story of Han and Chewie is pretty cool. But like the more like when they put Chewie in Revenge of the Sith, and I finally got to see him like I was like, oh snap, Chewie, and to find out he was like instrumental in making sure Yoda didn't die during the Jedi Purge. I'm like, cool. But the coolest thing about Chewie to me is that Chewie was captured and about to be, what was it? He was like captured by slavers or something to that effect. Him and Han were being held together in the same place, and they help each other escape, and because of that he forges a life debt with Han, and that's why that was the beginning of their friendship. They didn't know each other before that, but they were in this prison camp together, and they escaped together, and that was like, yo, you got my back, I got yours, and I'll never take my eye off you. And that was like the best bit of information I could have ever gotten about their backstory. I was like, okay, so now it makes sense why they're so close. But
I mean, Chewie loves Han. It's not a joke.
Oh God, Force Awakens. Like the love between the two of them, and you know what? I love that is one of those heterosexual love man relationships where it's like, look, guys can have deep relationships with each other. It's not gay. Relax. Yeah, it's all good. You can have emotion. You can have emotion. Like, come on, you can say you love your boy. Like, it's all right. It's not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all.
Like, there was this like time, I feel like especially like in the 90s, the boys weren't allowed to say those kind of things. They couldn't tell their boy they loved them. They couldn't like hug too much. Like, God forbid you kiss your boy on the cheek or something crazy like that. If you got emotional about something, bad things will be said about you. But I like that even that far back, here's a movie that shows that kind of relationship. Like, it's all over the place in like movies like Lord of the Rings, like, and it's just a big man love fest. But I like the way they did their bromance. Their bromance is beautiful.
Yeah, no, totally. We're into ants here on the Geek and the Scribe. Okay, awesome. Any other friendships you were thinking about or on your mind? Or just other relationships? We can switch to relationships. It doesn't have to be friendships.
Yeah. Well, one more friendship, and that for me was Han and Lando.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. That's good.
To me, now this, and again, opinions. To me, Han and Lando are, whereas Han and Chewie are definite bromance thing going on, but Han and Lando, they have more of an adversarial relationship. Clearly friends, but there's a one-upmanship going on between them. And like, if they were women, we would probably call them frenemies. But I feel like I've never heard that term coined. Yeah, like
my friend.
Like, they fight with each other. They're always just trying to decide who's better. Like, clearly he shows up at Cloud City, and two things happen pretty quickly between Han. Oh no, I'll say three. Three things happen pretty quickly between Han and Lando. First, he accuses him of stealing his ship, which was the Millennium Falcon, which did at one point belong to Lando. Two, they hug like they are brothers who haven't seen each other in decades. And then three, Lando hits on his girlfriend.
I mean, pretty much. Okay, so first of all, let's just refresh for those who are
unfamiliar.
So Lando, it was played by Billy D. Williams, right? And so I mean, he pretty hits on her from jump. you know, as soon as Billy D. Williams or Lando, he's just like, hey girl, let me come here, girl. Like he's just like, oh, beautiful. Like, you know what I mean? Like every interaction starts with, wow, you look great today. You know what I mean? It's he kind of forces it. And even after he essentially like tricks them into having lunch. Also, can we talk about that? Do you remember that scene?
Yes.
Where like, okay, so he kind of revealed, by the way, I have another visitor who just arrived before you got here. Yeah. And we're all gonna have lunch now. Like, what? And then they're just like, oh, okay, let's all have lunch. Like, what? Someone should have just like stormed out the room or thrown a chair, but they were just like, okay, let's have lunch now.
Well, there was a very brief.
That scene was so crazy.
It was. And
there was a what?
There was a brief laser fight. Like, Chewie got off, like, either Han or Chewie got off one shot, and then that was it.
And then it's like, oh, okay, let's all just have lunch. I don't know. I just feel like there should have been more there, but it's fine.
I feel like it was one of those scenes that was longer that Lucas cut for whatever reason. Like, and I can't wait to get to the prequel series just so I could talk about the dumb things that he cut out that would have explained some things so much better. But we won't do that now. I bet. But he has a tendency to do that, cut out crucial details, and then just kind of expect us to go on faith on it. And it's like, dude, why didn't you leave that detail in? It would have made sense. Like, right. And there are longer. Some of those scenes are like, if you get like the other than the extended cuts, like in some of the special features, there are longer versions of some of those scenes. And I don't know if they all explain what happens, but at least it gives Lando's reasoning better. Like, he was worried about the people in the city. In the end, he got tricked too. So, I mean, he got his comeuppance pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of like, their makeup, I feel like it was understood. It was like, look, it was like Lando was like, look, I gotta watch after my block.
Yeah,
like I gotta take care of like my kid, like my family. Like, I can't just like throw my people under the bus because of you. Like, I have to give you up because I have all these other people
depending
under my care right now.
And I'm trying to keep the Empire out of here, but then they took over anyway and deposed him, and like it all ended up for naught. It's kind of sucks. Yeah. He has to betray his friends, and it all turns out for nothing. But his ultimate would.
It was okay.
Yeah, you're right. It could have been explained a little better. Like, there definitely could have been more foreshadowing. And I get it was supposed to be a surprise, but in some ways you needed to understand why he did it. And they tell you, but I feel like they could have told you a little better. But I'm not going to nitpick too much because ultimately we get it. He was a public servant. He wanted to protect his people. Vader is scary as shit. He force chokes folks for like not bringing him his novelty socks. I don't know, but he does that a lot.
Yeah, it was ugly, but it's fine.
It's fine.
Oh boy. So, I mean, other relationships that kind of make you feel some kind of way.
Well, I think the biggest thing. I feel like I've been doing like tongue twisters. For me, the biggest thing, I think the biggest relationships are the student-teacher relationships, the master-pupil, or like however you want to say it, mentor-mentoree, because there's not a lot of traditional families in Star Wars, or really any, that, especially in the first series. A lot of importance is garnered from the mentor-mentoree relationship, like the relationship between Obi-Wan and Luke is so important in getting his story off. Hell, even the relationship between Obi-Wan and Vader, even though it'll be a long time before that whole story gets fleshed out. Like when you're watching the original ones, came out in the 70s, you don't really get that relationship fleshed out until the 90s. But it's clear in the original trilogy that there is a story, that here are somebody who must have at some point had a similar relationship as the one with Obi-Wan and Luke, but how did it go so wrong? And I think that was what a lot of people were thinking after A New Hope came out. And even further, when you find out more about Vader, you start wondering, man, what could have gone so terribly wrong that someone who was part of the peace-loving Jedi Order would turn so bad and turn his back on everybody?
Right.
But it is good to see the beginning of that relationship. When Obi-Wan begins his journey with Luke, he helps him all the way through the end. Even past his death, he's still the voice in Luke's ear telling him which way to turn, you know? It's Obi-Wan's like wisdom and his support of Luke that really gets Luke through. Like, would Luke have been able to finish out that battle and blow up the Death Star if he didn't take a moment and remember Obi-Wan's words to use the Force and just forget the computers, just focus on what you were taught? You got this, essentially. So I gotta say, best Obi-Wan Luke moment to me, and this is just me, was in, I'm like, I gotta make sure I'm saying the right movie. I want to say it's Return of the Jedi. Yes, it is Return of the Jedi. When Luke has to confront Obi-Wan for lying to him about Vader. And I love Obi-Wan's response, because he's like, you lied to me. You said Vader killed hunted down and killed my father. And Obi-Wan's like, he's like, well, when he turned into Vader, he stopped being Anakin. So what I told you was true. From a certain point of view. And that was that certain point of view that you were like, really?
Right.
That is significant truth stretching, Obi, just so you know. But it came from, but then you realize it came from him wanting to protect Luke, because knowing, and when the Yoda substantiates it, he goes, you were going to have to face him. It felt cruel to tell you that this ultimate evil you had to face and conquer was going to be your dad.
Right. I mean, isn't everyone always protecting Luke a little bit?
Yes, a little bit, but
a bit.
Yeah, but you got to think back to the title of episode 4.
Okay.
A New Hope. Like, Luke was the new. Luke, he was their hope. Yeah, and he was like this seed that they were trying to get to grow, and they were afraid. They were so afraid that, one, he could end up like Anakin in going to the dark side, or he would ultimately fail and die. And they're like, shit, there's nothing else. And even though they hint to go, there is another, saying that Leia's Force sensitive, but as we are pretty aware of now, Leia will never have it in her to train to be a Jedi. She's Force sensitive, but we never say how strong she truly is. And it's not something she seems to be interested in. So, Luke was all they had. So they're like, if this don't work out, God help us. Like, this is it. This is it. This is the last of us. So I get the urgency. I do get the urgency.
I guess. No, I get it. It's fine. It's just like, he's so protected. I mean, even in the the scene where he finds out, you know, he's like, Luke, I am your father. You know what I mean? I feel like even in that scene where they're like battling it out, I felt like Vader was actually being protective of him. He actually was, because then when the other dude, the side dude, was like, I'm about to like kill him, you could see Vader. I mean, you obviously can't see Vader, but like you could tell in his body language and from the camera editing that he's like, whoa, like I'll be his butt. Like you know what I mean? Like there was this moment where it was like, like that's my kid. I'll whoop him, but you can't whoop him. You know what I mean? Like,
and yeah, you have to assume at that point Vader is aware of who Luke must be,
right?
But and you're right. It's probably why he didn't kill him in that first fight. He didn't have a reason to. He didn't want to. He was hoping ultimately. And see, and again, we'll get to this in the nature of good and evil thing, but his ultimate goal, once he realized who Luke was to bring Luke to his side and for them to supplant the Emperor. It's just one of those, that's a big if type thing. That's saying, that's saying you can beat the Emperor. How come you've been his apprentice all this time if you could simply just beat him? Maybe he needed Luke's help in order to beat him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just feel like Luke is very protected. And I don't know how, that makes me feel, I have feelings about that. And it's probably just all personal. But I guess I wanted the stakes to be a little bit higher and like Luke to not always be so protected. Like, I guess maybe for my hero story, I want the hero to almost fail a little bit more.
Well, I mean, he did a big fail in Emperor Strikes Back.
No, he did do a big fail. I just feel like even his like training with Yoda, like, okay, he fell. Like, it wasn't. I don't know. I want like the hero who's like becomes the crackhead. Like, I want the hero who's just like down and out, who has leprosy, whose toes are falling off, who like I want the hero who like bums on the street make fun of, and then he comes back. Like, that's what I want.
Isn't that more or less closer to like Anakin's story then? Like, because he goes from being...
Yeah, but I love Anakin's story. I mean, Luke, his hair never like was not perfect. I mean, I just want him to be a little dirtier. I want him to like... I want him to have a hangnail. I want him to like have GI problems. Like, I want him to have IBS. I want him to have IBS.
Why? That's
I don't know. Because I want him to know what it is to be down and out, and then to come back as a conqueror. That's what I want him to know.
Well, if it makes you feel better,
I want to be probably like blonde and so perfect. I don't know.
Well, if it makes you feel better, you're probably gonna get that in this new series. It feels like they're taking the best of both storylines and they're kind of making something a little more new with it, and I like what they're doing so far. So I have no complaints.
Yeah, no, I totally trust the new series, and I'm gonna pull back.
I know.
So bad, but we're gonna focus because this is a 2-part series, so we will address that later. Maybe a 3-part if the shit gets crazy. So
there's always more to talk about.
So speaking of white skin and blonde hair, I would like to transition to some reflections that I had while watching the films recently. So I found myself deeply fascinated or refascinated with non-human, non-white characters. So that's the so definitely like Chewbacca, the R2-D2, C-3PO, definitely Yoda, even Jabba the Hutt, who's essentially a disgusting bad guy and like converted and disgusting. But I found myself really interested in their backstories and the plot, where they aligned as the narrative continued. I was really even interested in more so in Obi-Wan as the ghost, as this haunting who returns to bring these messages of wisdom and kind of guidance and comfort and affirmation. And I was sitting there watching the films, and I'm just like, why am I so obsessed with? And I know we have principal characters.
No.
They're clearly there, but
Yeah,
I just wasn't that concerned with them. And I realized that for me as a person of color, having principal characters who are primarily not people of color, primarily male, primarily white, I couldn't, even though there are all these themes about good and evil and hope and the hero and love and adventure, I still couldn't place myself in the narrative. And so for me to place myself in the narrative, I felt myself connecting deeper with characters who were not white and who were not human in order to find myself. And so I found myself identifying with these other characters who are supporting characters and great, amazing characters.
Yeah.
But that's where I had to find myself. That's where I had to kind of step into that Afrofuturism and that sci-fi and that imagination piece just to find myself in the narrative. And I was surprised how much that actually, you know, and I've seen obviously The Force Awakens, and so I know that diversity is coming. Right? So like I even with knowing that, it still makes me feel some kind of way that there are only 7 characters who are represented by Black actors in Star Wars, and only 4 of them we actually see on screen.
Yeah.
Right. So the others are in costumes, or just voices, not just voices, but our voices. And so even with the great voice of James Earl Jones comforting me through the narrative, I couldn't see myself physically in the movies. And I don't know what that means for me, but it definitely is something that came up for me.
I mean, again, this is one of those things, like, for me, like, I totally get what you're saying. For me, the thing, like, the closest I realized that I could get to a character that was relatable was maybe Leia, because she was a woman, so she's a white woman, but, like, that's the closest that you get, and there's only one main Black character who's in the original trilogy, like, so that you see on screen, there is one prominent Black character and one prominent female character.
Right.
That's it. Right. And it's like, wow, George Lucas, you weren't big on diversity, were you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it definitely shows his limitations.
So much.
His imagination and what he views as, his own hero story, among other things. So it's also really interesting because it's not just like, oh, well, I'm making it up and I have feelings. Well, if you think of Star Wars as an epic tale that's also about lineage, it's like, well, whose lineage gets reproduced in Star Wars? Yes, there were Black extras and there are Black actors, but it's whose children become supreme in Star Wars. It's whose babies, whose fertility gets continued along generational lines, and it's not people of color being continued along generational lines because those lineages are not accounted for in Star Wars. So, there's just a moment where you're just like, oh, I love this story, but you're also like, I would love if, like,
I know there was a character. There was a character who, I don't know, kind of looked like me at all, and we didn't get anything like that to the prequel series. Again, that was one of the few things it gave us, but it gave us more diversity. You got to see more kinds of people, and not just like the ethnicities we're used to, but all different kinds of aliens you haven't seen before, and ones that are because some of them are so clearly humanoid that you could clearly see the ethnicity of the person even underneath their makeup. So I was like, oh, okay, I totally know that's a Black chick underneath all that green makeup. Like, cool.
Oh, you mean the one who gets thrown in the floor?
We won't talk about
dungeon?
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
okay.
but
I mean, she died. She died.
yeah, no, totally. But well, most of them do. The blue chick, because I'm pretty
Did she die?
sure. Yeah, but that's during the Order 66 thing in Revenge of the Sith. Like that's when the Jedi purge begins. She's one of the ones they show get shot in the beginning. Well, in the beginning, right after the order's given out. Like she's supposed to be the same race that the dancer from Jabba's palace that they throw in the pit with the monster. Like
Yeah.
yeah, her.
Someone told me she didn't die because they used the same. I don't know if the character is supposed to die or not. That wasn't clear. But someone told me that the same woman actress who played that green kind of dancey, seductive thing who falls to the floor, at Jabba's command. Actually, they used that same actress in a feature movie where she's dancing, and she's also still like very fit and very hot, apparently.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I haven't looked that up on the Wikipedia. The Wikipedia.
Yeah, and some of like I like that there are some of these humanoid aliens. You clearly see that it's pretty clear to see that what they're the actors have affinity for. So I'll count those just because it's apparent. So it's still a character because it has similar features, so I can identify with. But I mean, I love the story, and I feel like, what I realized? I probably identify more with Princess Leia because, I realize how jacked this is, because this is because of a portrayal of Princess Leia by a non-human character.
Right. I get that.
Because you know what I remember, because I said earlier about Star Wars themed TV shows. First one I remember, Muppet Babies.
Oh.
Miss Piggy and Princess Leia.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that. I mean, Leia. Yeah, I like Carrie Fisher more than I like Leia.
I love that book she wrote about her life.
When I think of like Leia as Carrie Fisher, I'm in it. But then when I think about Leia just as Leia, I'm like, wah. Although, I mean, I'm not knocking her. I'm just saying, like, those are where my allegiances lie.
I understand. Carrie Fisher.
I love when she pushes back on him, and he's like, you love me or whatever, and she's like, I know, whatever the reversal of whatever.
Oh no, because when he says it, she says, I know, and I was like, yes, you're there. But that's another thing. Like their relationship is clearly equal, and that's one thing I did like about the portrayal of their romance. There's no subservience. She's not waiting for him to save her. They're equal. She'll save him just as quickly as he'll save her. Like the reason why he says he loves her in that moment is because they're surrounded by stormtroopers, and she's about to pull out a gun, and he looks down, sees the blaster in her hand, and he's like, I love you. And she's like, I know.
Right. No, it's so sweet, right? It's so sweet.
It's so different than so many other like hero damsel stories that we get in that kind of story. But I'm like, yay! I love that she kicks ass a little bit.
Right.
Like, she needed to be saved in the beginning, but not only did but the ordeal she goes through with Vader, like, she gets captured after being chased down by a Star Destroyer, gets captured by Vader, tortured, watches her homeworld blow up before her eyes, and when Luke and Han save her, she still has to take an active role in saving herself. And it's like, oh.
I mean, she's pretty boss. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, she's
boss.
Yeah, I feel like she's one of the first like kind of standalone female characters where it was balanced. Like she wasn't too much one thing or another. She was just still a woman, but she was under extreme circumstances. She wanted to make the universe a better place, as it were, and she really put her all into it. Even being raised as a princess.
Team Leia for president. How about that?
Like she is. Like, oh man, like that's one thing. I don't even want anime. I want Padme for president. She cared about her people.
Oh, that's dope. I'm just throwing up for our live streamers, throwing up a picture of Leia. That's a dope one, actually, with her and Darth. And
Okay.
Okay.
See, that picture makes me
Go
bring
ahead.
up one huge ass plot hole, though. How come Vader couldn't sense Leia? He could sense Luke. That's his twin. Like, how come? I feel like because that was
sexism. All right, that's the answer.
I feel like that was written. I feel like that was written later and not in the original story.
Yeah, exactly. Okie dokie. And because of sexism.
That's you.
Yeah, I was like, that's what I'm gonna wrap it up to, but who knows? We can come back to that. Let's see where we are. This is good, Shayna. I'm excited. I want to just watch them all night long.
And all right,
movies.
Right. Okay, don't totally watch the shows. Like, if you really like Anakin's story, watch the shows. Everybody watch the shows. Like,
that's your. Go ahead.
No. I'm not to plug anything, but like, if one is like more concerned with Anakin's story, totally you have to watch like the animated Clone Wars and what you call Star Wars Rebels. It's pretty key to get in there with that. That's all. Just it's so much more to have. And also, favorite character not in movies is in there. My favorite character that's not in the movies that's in there.
Who's your favorite character?
Ahsoka.
Okay.
She's Anakin's Padawan. Well, and she later becomes a great Jedi, and she's awesome. She's just totally just awesome. And again, a female character.
List?
Yes. Well, no, the list is for the prequel, but check my notes.
What's your list? What you got, Shayna?
Well, no. No, my list is for the prequels, and if I start into the prequels now, like I don't know how to just blasely mention them.
No, you're right. All right, no, I get it. It's all good. Hey, so why don't you ride us out with your thoughts on good and evil? That's a good way to end tonight's show.
Cool. Yes, because this is a theme that is going to go through every Star Wars movie, and I think it has a lot to do with the way we as a kind of community in the world or what have you see good and evil. Like, when you're first introduced to the Jedi, you don't know much about them, but you know that mostly from what Obi-Wan or Yoda tells you and the slight comments that other people make about it. And by the way, if it's only been like 19 years between the fall of the Republic and A New Hope, that can't possibly be enough time for everybody to forget about the Jedi, except for the young generation like Luke, who would not have grown up with them. Just a point. But you have the Jedi in there, and you have a lot of talk about the light side of the Force, and the light side is love, and it's what you call serenity, it's calm, it's evenness, it's all the things that you think about good emotions. And then later you're introduced to the Sith. Now, I keep trying to rack my brain because I can't remember, but just because I feel like you saw all three recently, do they actually say the word Sith in those movies?
Sith? Are you saying Sith, S-I-T-H, or Sith?
Sith, S-I-T-H.
Sith?
As in the evil.
I don't remember them saying it, but we can throw it out to listeners. So if they...
Anybody actually confirmation on, did they actually say that? And it's funny because they just say the dark side, and it's so black and white. It's so like dark. It's so clean and clear cut, and they make it seem so simple that the dark side is just bad. But what we learn later as you go through the series and the franchise here, there, and everywhere, is that it's not so much the dark side is evil. It's just the extreme of the light. So if light is calmness and serenity, Then the dark is passion and chaos. It's, it's, it's spontaneous. It's explosive. It is everything that the light isn't. And so what's truly the better place to be? The extreme good or the extreme bad? And I've seen this played out in so many different ways. TV shows, movies, conversations, just everything, like media, news, that there always, people in history always want there to be a distinct bad guy and a distinct good guy. But the truth of the matter is most of the world we live in is a big old sea of gray. So the notion of the Jedi being like this perfect good and the Sith being this perfect evil, is that something we can really reconcile in real life?
Right.
And I love the way the story like delves in it, and I'm really super excited to see how they delve into it in the new series. But as far as the as far as the original set go, though, it's really clear. It's in the beginning. It's really clear, but they're really good about dropping in subtle points along the way, like when Obi-Wan lies to him. If you're perfect good, how could you lie? Like,
right.
Little manipulations that even the Jedi do to get the results that they need. Like, so what it like I like the way Yoda put it better. Yoda was saying that it's fear, anger, and hatred that causes the fear. It's not so much the impassioned feelings that come with it, but these particular things that one turns to the other, turns to the other. It's always a domino. What you fear, you will eventually hate. What you hate, you will want to destroy. And that is the ultimate message and that Yoda gives you about the dark side. And I feel like that's a better way of saying it. That, okay, it's not that there's a clear way of thinking that makes you good and a clear way of thinking that makes you bad, but it's when you let it's when you follow this path and have these dominoes fall over, this is what can lead you to the bad stuff. This is the scary thing here. And if you even think about it in our real life, our real world, like fear ultimately always breeds hatred, and hatred will always come with destruction. And I like the way Star Wars does it and plays out in the story, because it's always so applicable. And how love is the opposite. Love garners understanding. Understanding is creation and growth. So, oh my God, it just shows you how excited I am to see how they play in the coming movies. Like, I love that they try to keep it very like linear and black and white as far as the original ones are, because at the end of the day, it still is kind of a fairy tale. Like, they call it a space opera, but what's an opera? It's a fairy tale. It's just really dramatic. And you get to see clearly, the emotion, like where Luke is clearly tempted by the dark side, when he's angry enough to kill his father, and he has that clarity moment where he's like, snap. Rewind. Right. This is what Yoda warned me about. I can't hate him for what he's doing. He's in the dark side. He'll know it better. Let me reason with him real quick, because I feel like his will breaking. We can do this together. Take out the Emperor. Where the Emperor is always shown as clearly evil. No matter what movie they show him as a clever charlatan, a liar. They show him as, underneath all his pleasantry, there's hatred and ugliness and unpleasantness. And when he finally gets to wear that on the outside, it's vindication in a way.
Right.
But yeah, so it's an interesting thing, and I will definitely go more actually into this subject as we look at the prequel series, mostly because we're going to go into more, because it's going to be more important to show the grays and also how they could have done Anakin's fall much more convincingly and better.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay,
and with the introduction of the Gray Jedi, is really important. Where it's showing maybe the middle path is the better path. But regardless, that's where I'm gonna leave it. Well, shaking my camera all over the place.
Slow down over there, Jedi. All right, Shayna. So wait, last looks. If you had to choose between the light and the dark. What would you choose? Wah, ha, ha, ha.
Well, I mean, I probably should, like, if those are my only choices, probably the light, just because they seem more chill. It's just way too high strung.
Oh, I like the dark. I feel like they vote consistently. That's all I'll say. All right, this is awesome. Oh, and I have to give a shout out to the Ewoks. We didn't get to talk about the Ewoks.
Oh, we didn't talk it. Which they are just the reverse of Wookiees, apparently.
Oh, that I have feelings about that. Okay, we have to go. Shayna, may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th.
And thank you to everyone. May the 4th be with you. And thank you to everyone on our podcast and everyone watching us live. We want to thank you once again for subscribing and listening to The Geek and the Scribe. We are 2 Black girls interested in arts, media, culture, fandom, and yeah, we're happy to talk about all those things and talk about race, gender, and identity and where the intersections lie. Please tune in for our second part of this series, and we will see you soon. Thank you. Say bye, Shayna.
Bye, Shayna.
Bye, Shayna. Everyone say bye, Shayna. Thank you
Bye.
for listening to The Geek and the Scribe.
Bye, the geek.